The July heat was unforgiving that Saturday afternoon when I heard the sharp, unmistakable clack of heels against pavement. Peering through my front window, I saw Patricia Garrison, the HOA president, marching toward the community pool, phone pressed tightly to her ear. Her voice, loud and shrill, echoed across the neatly trimmed lawns as she barked into the phone about trespassers and unauthorized pool use. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder by the second. I couldn't help but smile. Everything was unfolding perfectly. Patricia came to an abrupt stop as she reached the pool gate, her jaw dropped. The phone in her manicured hand nearly slipped from her grip. The fury in her eyes gave way to stunned disbelief as she stared at what I had set up just beyond the pool fence, and the best part? I hadn't broken a single rule, but let's rewind 3 weeks back to when all of this started. My name is Alex Thompson. I had just moved into the Riverside Meadows subdivision after landing a new role as a software engineer. The neighborhood appeared ideal: tree-lined streets, well-manicured lawns, and a community pool that sealed the deal for me, especially with temperatures regularly climbing above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. On my third day in the neighborhood, I strolled over to the pool office to get my access key. Patricia was there, seated behind a desk stacked with color-coded binders. She glanced up at me over her rhinestone-studded glasses, offering a rehearsed smile that didn't reach her eyes. When I introduced myself and asked about getting pool access, her smile twisted into something sharper, almost predatory. She informed me that new residents had to wait 90 days before being granted pool privileges. When I asked whether this rule was in the HOA bylaws, she tapped a fat binder labeled Pool Regulations and said it was standard procedure. I pressed further, asking to see the rule myself, but she claimed the documents were being revised and weren't available for review. Over the following 2 weeks, I filed 3 formal requests for access, pointing out that no such 90-day waiting period existed in the publicly available documents. Each request was denied with increasingly absurd excuses. First, she said my paperwork was incomplete. Then, she questioned the validity of my signed lease. Finally, she claimed a mysterious waiting list existed and that it could take months to receive a key. Things escalated when I bumped into Patricia at the mailbox cluster one evening. I calmly asked for an update on my pool access. Her response was anything but professional. She launched into a condescending lecture about respecting authority and following proper procedures. At one point, she even wagged her finger at me and uttered the phrase, "people like you." That's when I realized this wasn't about policy. It was about control. The harassment began almost immediately after that encounter. I started receiving violation notices for the most absurd infractions. According to Patricia, my car was parked 2 inches over the driveway line. My garbage bins were visible from the street for 37 minutes, 7 minutes over the limit. One potted plant on my porch allegedly exceeded the maximum height by half an inch. Each notice came with a warning and a threat of fines. It was clear she was trying to break me down through petty enforcement. Things got weirder. I noticed the same 3 women walking past my house multiple times a day, phones out, clearly snapping photos. One morning, I caught Patricia herself, crouching behind my hedge with a tape measure, trying to find some obscure landscaping violation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was surveillance. Everything changed the day I ran into my neighbor, Tom Bradley, at the grocery store. He'd lived in Riverside Meadows for over 15 years and had served on the HOA board before Patricia took over. We ended up chatting over coffee, and Tom confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. Patricia had made it her mission to keep certain residents, anyone she didn't personally approve of, away from the community amenities. She's been using fake rules and red tape for years, Tom said, shaking his head. No one wants to challenge her. Most people just give up. But then he told me something interesting. The vacant lot next to the pool, often used for overflow parking during block parties, wasn't actually under HOA control. It was public property owned by the city. That detail sparked an idea so wild it just might work. I went home and started researching. That night I made several phone calls and spent hours digging through city records. By Monday morning, I had everything I needed: permits from the city, approval for temporary recreational use of public space, and a booking with a local company called Aqua Fun Rentals. The plan was bold, a little unconventional, but completely legal. If Patricia was going to block my access to the community pool, I'd simply create my own. The following Saturday was scorching. With temperatures soaring past 98 degrees Fahrenheit, I got up early and watched as the Aqua Fun team assembled a massive above-ground pool on the vacant city-owned lot right beside the community pool. It was a 25-foot wide, 4-foot deep beast of a pool fully equipped with a filtration system, ladders, and all necessary safety equipment. I made sure it was angled so it could be seen clearly from the HOA pool deck, just to twist the knife a little. By noon, I had added everything: lounge chairs, umbrellas, a few coolers packed with ice and drinks, and a Bluetooth speaker playing classic summer hits at a respectful volume. Above it all hung a professional-looking banner that read in cheerful blue letters, "Thompson's Oasis. All neighbors welcome." I posted signs noting that this was a private event on public property, with the permits clearly displayed. Word spread quickly. First, the Johnson family showed up with their kids. Then the Patels arrived, residents who'd also been denied pool access for suspicious reasons. By 2 p.m., there were more than 20 people gathered, chatting, swimming, and finally enjoying their neighborhood without judgment or gatekeeping. People were laughing. They brought snacks to share. Strangers became friends over paper plates of watermelon and chips. That's when Patricia arrived. The slamming of her car door turned heads. She marched across the lot, red-faced and furious, shouting about violations before she was even within earshot. When she reached the signs showing the official city permits, she hesitated. Her eyes flicked across the paperwork, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But then she doubled down. "This is an attack on HOA authority," she screamed, pulling out her phone. She dialed 911, claiming we were trespassing on HOA property and disturbing the peace. Neighbors watched in stunned silence, then quietly began recording her. The sound of sirens grew closer as Patricia positioned herself at the pool gate like a self-appointed warden, flanked by her usual enforcers, Vice President Janet Morrison and Secretary Linda Foster. She stood stiffly, arms crossed, eyes locked on my pool like it was a crime scene. The atmosphere buzzed with tension. It felt like a showdown in a suburban western. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and Officers Davis and Martinez stepped out, exchanging a glance as they took in the scene. Patricia immediately launched into a tirade about trespassing, property rights, and criminal disturbance. She pointed frantically toward the pool area, insisting that arrests be made to restore order to the community. The officers followed her to the HOA pool gate. She fumbled with her master key, still rambling about standards and property values. When the gate finally swung open, Patricia strode in, fully expecting to catch a group of rule breakers lounging in her pool, but it was completely empty. The only sounds were laughter and splashing from across the fence, where Thompson's Oasis was in full swing. Officer Davis walked over to inspect our setup. He returned a few minutes later with a small grin and calmly told Patricia that everything was in order. The event was on public property. The permits were valid, noise levels were legal, and no one had violated any laws. Patricia's face turned several shades of red. "This is an illegal gathering," she barked, her voice shrill. Officer Martinez remained patient. "Ma'am, this is a permitted private event on city property. There's no law against enjoying a Saturday afternoon." A few neighbors chuckled. Even Janet and Linda looked visibly uncomfortable. By now, more than 40 people had joined the party. Kids played in the water, parents sipped drinks, and neighbors bonded, many for the first time. Several HOA board members who had once remained silent began drifting toward the oasis, quietly distancing themselves from Patricia's crusade. Then Robert Chan, a board member, approached the officers. He thanked them for their time and apologized for the unnecessary emergency call. He didn't have to say anything else. The look he gave Patricia said it all. "This isn't over, but not in the way you think." As the officers prepared to leave, Officer Davis paused to glance back at the empty HOA pool. "Shame," he muttered. One of the hottest days of the year, and your community pool's unused while everyone's out here having a great time. Patricia tried to recover, mumbling something about waiting periods and standard procedures, but the words fell flat. No one was listening anymore. The real drama came after the police left. Patricia attempted to rally her remaining loyalists, but even Janet and Linda had lost their taste for her tactics. One by one, more board members wandered over to the oasis. Mark Sullivan, the treasurer, arrived with a cooler full of sodas. He raised his drink and thanked me publicly for offering a solution when others only enforced problems.